Isiah Factor Uncensored starts now. And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a great show planned for you. First up, Matthew Mitchell, the 52-year-old father here in the city of Houston back in May, who shot and killed his two children along with his wife. A civil lawsuit has been filed alleging part of the motivation for that, money problems. Let's get to it tonight. The ring video of Matthew Mitchell was released in a civil lawsuit filed by his wife's family. They're alleging he tried to transfer $1 million to his mother before he killed his wife and two children. Thai's family also says Matthew was concerned about fraud he allegedly committed, but they were not specific. In the video, it shows him talking to himself, pacing at one point, repeatedly saying, "You're not strong enough." Then he says, "I shouldn't have done this." And he follows with, "I've got to kill everybody." And joining us now to talk about this tragic case, we have Dr. Nick Hardy and Lucy Petry, CPA and attorney. Dr. Hardy, when you take a look at that video and just see how in distress Mr. Mitchell was, thinking about his financial problems and a way out. First of all, how would you analyze that, with the pacing, the walking back and forth, repeating, talking to yourself out loud? I don't know if every now and then we talk to ourselves, but he looked like he was having a full conversation back and forth.
Yeah, and this isn't the first conversation that he's had with himself. I mean, this really looked like something that had been brewing, and he finally got to a tipping point, to the point that he was just not himself. And I think, when you think about that and think about even obviously some of his actions after that, it's his logical brain and decision making was completely off. I mean, he just seems completely overwhelmed with whatever the circumstance was that he was up against.
And of course, we know there were financial problems going on. In the civil lawsuit, the wife's family indicated he had committed some type of fraud. We just don't have the details in that, and that will come out later in the investigation. Also, Dr. Hardy, there was that aspect of dealing with public shame. He is a high-profile figure on television locally all the time, and may have been on some of the national channels when we talk about his restaurant, Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart. But there is that aspect. And I think in the lawsuit, they also mentioned he was concerned about public embarrassment about his financial situation. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, even if that wasn't mentioned, that's one of the first things that I would go to is just the shame, the embarrassment. I always think that just adds another layer. All of us have had some financial troubles, I'm sure, at one point in our lives. But I think when, you are on a public display and your identity becomes wrapped up into what it is that you do professionally, we give money a certain power over our lives. And that power a lot of times is what causes us to feel like we're losing it, because again, I mean, everything that he does, I'm sure, was wrapped up into these restaurants. You work hard, and then to see that potentially crumble or not, be what people think it is, it does become overwhelming for a lot of people. And unfortunately, I mean, it ended in the worst case tragedy ever. But I definitely believe that shame, the embarrassment, how's my family going to respond? How's the community going to respond? Definitely played a factor in probably how he was processing it.
And was there a chill down your spine, Dr. Nick? And I know you deal with mental health issues all the time, but hearing him in that video say, "I got to kill them."
Yeah, it did. When, especially knowing how it ended. I mean, to hear that, it landed completely different, because it was premeditated. It wasn't something that just happened. And, I mean, obviously we don't know the specifics leading up to it, but just hearing him process that out loud adds a completely different layer, because it does seem like something that he was planning, that he had thought through, and that for whatever reason believed that was his way out.
And Lucy, we're going to get to you in just a second, but I mean, this is just interesting, fascinating, but tragic all at the same time. And Dr. Hardy, my impression is everything that you think about or you may say internally, he said out loud.
He did. He did. But even saying that internally still, should make you feel uncomfortable. I mean, this is your family. These are the people who, have walked alongside of you. They've celebrated. I mean, there's so much more to life outside of these restaurants. And so just to know that not only that was something that he was thinking, but something that he verbalized beforehand and actually followed through on, it just takes on a whole new identity in terms of what this how this tragic event unfolded. I mean, it was tough to watch. It really was.
And Lucy, we brought you in for the financial aspect, and from your experience as being CPA, tax preparer, attorney, all of that, people go through financial problems all the time, every day. Someone is going through a financial problem right now, and it just depends on where they are in their life for the scale of it. But was there no recovery from this for him?
This is a very common scenario, especially in the hospitality restaurant industry, for things to get out of hand. It's very common for small businesses to run into cash flow problems. We don't know if it was a cash flow problem, but cash flow problems are very common. And I think one of the conversations that he had, one of the videos show him mentioning the financial problems and potentially fraud and finding no way to get out of the financial problems. There is always a way out. I think the suicide ideation is when people feel that there's no solution to their problems, but there's bankruptcy. You can shut the business down and start over. You can get loans. I mean, if you're still eligible for loans, there are ways to get out of the financial problems. They're usually temporary.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll come back and finish this conversation about this video released on Matthew Mitchell, who is also gone, but he killed his two children and his wife before taking his own life in their home in the River Oaks area, the owner of Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart. We'll be back with more Factor Uncensored in just a moment. Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We're talking about 52-year-old Matthew Mitchell, the restaurateur here in the Houston area who shot and killed his two children and his wife. Let's get back to our conversation. We're talking about Matthew Mitchell, the owner of Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart here in the city of Houston, who took his own life, but that was after taking the life of his two children and his wife, and investigators say he was facing financial problems. Court records indicate in a lawsuit that has been filed by his wife's family, indicating that he was having financial problems, and the solution he came up with was killing the family because he was publicly ashamed. So, Lucy, let's get back to you. When we talk about these types of financial problems, add on a high-profile individual. Should he have leveraged that popularity, his name, his likeness here in Houston to maybe get additional help?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe. We don't know how bad it was. We don't know if he had exhausted all resources already, going to banks, friends, family, to get loans and to continue running the business. The business, I just announced that it was closing last week, but now it may not be closing. We don't know if the business itself had cash flow problems, if the restaurants itself had cash flow problems, had financial problems. They could have been personal loans. It could have been fraud. We don't know. We won't know until this case is progressed through the courts, and perhaps with public filings, we'll find out more. But yeah, I don't know that his public being out in the public would have helped him financially or obtain more resources to get out of his financial problems.
Well, celebrities get investors because of their names and who they are, and people. And I'm not saying he's necessarily a celebrity on that scale, but he's a celebrity, well known here in Houston. And so you could use that and leverage that towards, calling one of the big wigs in town saying, look, let me borrow this and we'll come back on our feet and we'll return that investment. Dr. Hardy, for those who look upon his situation on the outside, looking in and say, I don't care. He is a monster. He's a monster for killing his 2 children, for killing his wife, cowardice for taking his own life. What would be your perspective on that? Is it a monster, or was it some kind of psychosis that left him in desperation with no other solution than the one he took?
Well, I definitely think there were other solutions. There's never going to be any circumstance where I say that was the solution. And it is so hard in these situations to look at people with compassion, especially when you think about taking the innocent lives of your wife and your kids. Even as a therapist, I still am like, but why? All right, but why? My response to that is, I just encourage anyone who's in that situation to really reach out for help, because I don't know how he felt. I don't know what other potential mental health issues were at play. I don't know if there was any drugs, any substance, and by no means am I making excuses or trying to justify it. I just know that, man, sometimes people can be in such a low place that their rational, logical decision goes completely out of the window.
All right. We want to thank you guys for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. Tough story to talk about, to cover, and I'm sure even tougher for the family. We want to wish them all the best in prayers. Thank you both for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored.